Hey Garth,
Hey, Jason, good to see you.
man, it's good to see you too. I am so excited about today's topic. It's on communication.
Amazing. Can't wait.
Yeah, it got me thinking. Garth, you've seen more speakers, probably presenters, keynote
Mm,
speakers than anybody I know. You're the
mm.
most well-traveled, most well-professional developed person I know. Um, Tell me,
Thanks,
who's the
Jason.
most memorable speaker you've seen? And follow-up question: what made them memorable?
Ooh, that is that is a great question. The one that pops to my head is more of a recency effect. Um, as a, as I head up the global experience program at Haverhill College, I attend the Global Educators Benchmarking Group annual general conference. And last year, the focus was on environment and sustainability, and we had the author Ellen Kelsey. I've actually talked about her on this podcast before, and to hear her speak and know what her message, it was beautiful. And there was no pomp, no circumstance, nothing. It was just her and a slide deck. Is the interaction between her and the slide deck as
Yep,
well that
yep,
she was presenting, which was pretty powerful. But it was just the way that she was. You could tell this. You could tell that it was almost like you're having a coffee with her.
yeah,
You know, the presentation was a conversation. The conversation was a presentation. Um, I was very moved by her connection that she made with the audience. She was able to empathize almost immediately. And one of the audience members, I remember she stood up because there was a Q&A at the end, and she stood up and said, "This is not a question. This is just a thank you. I didn't know
right.
how much I needed to hear that from you today." Because she talks about, hope in a climate crisis is the thing that's going to get us through. Hope allows us to think long term, which means that we aren't making short term decisions. And she just made these complex concepts so simple and digestible. Yeah, she was brilliant. Highly recommend. And what about you?
Oh, for me, it's a runaway with Marcus Buckingham. If you ever seen him speak, he is just so authentic, true, wise. He tells good stories. He makes you laugh. He makes you think. I
Yeah.
think all of these things, and that's what our podcast is about today. Is about
Yeah.
how you are authentic. How do you interact with the material? How do you get your message across? Who are
Nice.
you in that space? And it's about
Mm.
clear, concise communication, Garth. And
Yeah.
I'm jacked about sharing the resources that we're going to share in this
Yeah.
podcast.
And Jason, I also ask you a couple of tough questions that I think our listeners will be really excited to hear your answer because they're great answers. And we dabble a little bit with effective communication in the world of social media too. So
Yeah.
we we hope you enjoy, listeners.
So doozy.
Yeah.
With Garth and Jason, we dive right in. Breaking down Ted's world, let's begin. From AFC, Richmond's Field to your day to day. Lassoing leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from Ted, we'll learn and grow.
Welcome back to Lassoing Leadership. I'm Jason Rogers.
And I am Garth Nichols, and this is episode 1 of our ninth leadership theme.
So
It's
good,
like
Garth.
our 26th, 27th podcast of season 2. I think our 80th or so podcast of the whole thing. And we've talked about 8 different ways to lead with compassion and kindness. We've had some special episodes thrown in there. We've spoken with over 10 different guests on this podcast, received over 3 dozen listener questions at this point. Come a long way in season 2, Jason.
Oh, Garth, when we started this and your dream of having 3 podcasts, do you ever think that we get close to 100? I think we might crack triple digits when it comes to this. I'm having a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you put it like that, Garth, we've really done a lot. This has been a great journey, buddy.
Yeah, and we keep rolling together on this train. So today, in the next 15 or so minutes, we'll take a look at the role of effective communication in our leadership practice. And next episode, we speak with an incredible special guest who is not only an author and CEO for leaders to level up their communication, but he too is also a podcaster.
Wow, we'll have to be on our best for
Yes.
another podcaster, won't we? It's a lot of pressure to have a podcaster on this episode.
It is. It is, especially someone as seasoned as this gentleman is. So, and then of course our third podcast, as always, is on effective communication. Will be with listener Q&A.
Yeah, and I hope that our questions are as meaningful and articulate and well communicated as our listener questions that come in. I'm looking forward to living up to that expectation.
Yes, well, they always are. Our listeners come through, so no worries there.
And we've talked about so many themes of leadership, but an argument could be made that a leader's impact hinges on their ability to communicate effectively. And that's exactly why I'm so up for this week's episode, Garth. I think it's so important for leaders to understand good communication.
Yeah, I mean, to come across as authentic, and still, leaders can use communication to inspire, to build trust, create investment from those that they lead, and create a sense of belonging too.
Yeah, and it works it's important in all scenarios, whether you're celebrating or mourning. I think, communication is as important in the sad times as the happy times. And truly, if done poorly, it can create the opposite of the intended effects. So
yeah,
how about we start there, Garth? What can you tell us about your understanding of effective communication? What have you learned while you're looking into this?
Yeah, I think, I like to go to this. What I think is the foremost understanding that communication is a two-way street. So you have to deliver the message. And I think many leaders have a lot of practice at that. But you as a leader have to do all you can do to create the conditions for others to hear your message.
You're right. No. I think you're on track. Why don't you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think timing is everything. In their book,
Sure.
The Power of Moments by Chip and Dan Heath, they write, many of the defining moments in our lives are the result of accident or luck. But why would we leave our most meaningful, memorable moments to chance when we can create them? And that book demonstrates how you can make richer experiences. And I think as a leader, you can create incredible moments where your message can land in the most effective way.
I totally agree with that, Garth. And I think for our listeners who haven't found Chip and Dan Heath yet, what a gift. I mean, these two have written just extraordinary books on all levels of communication. They started with Made to Stick, which I thought was just a textbook on how to get a communication across in a way that it sticks with the listener. And today, in this day and age, I think too often we're struggling with this inability to get people to pay or sustain attention. And so having these tools in your tool belt, whether it's in the Power Moments or Made to Stick or, my goodness, any of their works, I think is hugely helpful.
Yeah, I think so too. So to set the conditions, at the very least, recognize the conditions of your audience and help tailor your communication. So I think this amounts to knowing the culture, helping to create a culture in those prepared moments, like a faculty meeting or what have you, but also knowing what your audience journey is of that day, maybe of that week. So I think that's important. And sometimes it calls for the occasional, hey, team or whoever you're addressing, hey, we don't need our laptops. Hey, I need your full attention. Like, you can call these moments into being just with those simple sort of signals and words. If you have given like a presentation in advance, hey, have them up on your laptops. Hey, can we turn our laptops to focus mode? Thanks, folks. Let's get started. Like, even those little tips and suggestions can go a long way. But Jason, as head of school, no doubt you know all about this. Like, you deliver messages about a whole host of things: strategic planning, shared grief, joy with your community, and much more, I'm sure. So maybe, how do you prepare? How do you make sure the conditions are as good as they can be for when you need to deliver a message?
Well, Garth, while you're talking, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think 90% of the job, whether you're fundraising or you're strategic planning, is communication as head of school or senior leader of an organization. And there's a really good book that came out a couple of years ago called, I think it's called The Art of Gathering. I'll look it up and I'll put it in the show notes. And it is absolute textbook as to setting norms and expectations for gatherings, whether it's, like you said, a staff meeting. What are our group expectations? So to say them ahead of time and set that standard is extraordinarily important for groups. Similarly, if Garth, you and your team have done a lot of brainstorming or plussing or design thinking, there are expectations and norms in the communication and the receiving of that communication. Before you start. I'm sure you've seen that as you work through Cohort 21 and other experiences, don't you?
Yeah, for sure. But in terms of you, Jason, like, how do
Yeah.
you set that? How do you set that up? What are maybe some like maybe a checklist, or what are some things you aim to get done?
Yeah. So I mean, in my work, I really think attention is at a premium. So you've got to get to the point as quick as you can. Well, first, before you even get to the point, you have to empathize with the group. So if you're talking to a group of parents, you know that their focus is likely on their child's experience. If you're talking to a group of staff members, for instance, you know that their experience would dictate that they want good workplace environment. You're talking to the board, you know that they're thinking about probably business outcomes at the end of the day. So
Mm,
whichever group you're talking to, you've got to get right inside their heads. You've got to get deep empathy before you even start. And if you don't do that, you're going to miss a point and you're going to be
mm,
dismissed before you get going. Once you get going, then I think it's integral to be clear. You know, what's the message you're trying to say, and say it right away. I think organizationally, once you've been clear on the message you're trying to get across, always connecting it back to your mission, vision, values
mm.
of your
Nice.
organization is really important. And I don't think that matters if you're in a school or your business. I think some connection to that is really, really critical. I think following up is also really important. I think a lot of people have become immune to talking points, have become immune to those quick hits. And I think as a leader, if you're able to follow up on your message, whether it's a week, 2 weeks, a month, whether it's through data or through a narrative, I think it's really important to prove that you too were listening while you were communicating. And part of
Yeah.
that is listening to how that message came back and then following up with that message. And, you know, in my very own communication style, I spend a lot of time telling stories or connecting it to anecdotes or connecting it to a narrative. Something that brings the emotion into the message is always a part of this, but it's not central. That's window dressing. That's to get
Yeah.
people, you know, alongside. But I think honestly, Garth, it comes down to empathizing, to being clear, connecting it to mission, vision, values, and to following up. And I think if you follow those steps, you got a better chance of getting a message across.
Yeah, brilliant. You brought us to storytelling as well, which I really love, because there is. I'm gonna ask you one more question in a little bit, but there is a key part of effective communication which can be out of our control, which is social media. And so I did want to talk a little bit about,
Yeah.
how do you as a leader, how do you use effective communication in social media? And
Yeah.
I'm looking at Harvard Business Review
Right.
from, I don't know, when is this from March, April 2024. um, and then looking at another great organization called C-Suite for Leaders. They talk about similar things. You have to be consistent in your messaging, right? You
Yeah.
have to align it, and that messaging has to come through with authenticity. We'll put these in the show notes because they have some great subpoints to these. Around social media, it can't always be about you. It has to be about empowering others. It has to be consistent with your values, and at the same time address industry trends. And it also has to somehow engage your followers. Now, I see some good overlaps with all those things that you just mentioned here. But some of these, and I think this applies to leaders, some of this comes from this great article from Harvard Business Review, which is called How Companies Should Weigh In on a Controversy, a Better
Mm-hmm.
Approach to Stakeholder Management. And they've got some great ideas here. Unfortunately, some of those ideas are coming from moments that of failure, where it wasn't effective. So, Jason, here's my next question for you. Have you ever maybe had a moment where you were ineffective in communication, or maybe it bombed? Like, when have you failed in your communication? I know you got to get vulnerable with this, buddy, but I know you can.
Well, you know, it's true, Garth. I mean, you go through this stuff, I think, as a leader. I'm sure you've been through it as well. But I mean, I think of two examples. One of them is really close to my heart. We had a really intense tragedy once at the school. And
Mm,
I was talking to a friend and colleague who was a former headmaster. And he said to me, you know, you gotta go in, it's gotta be a little bit performative here because you can't show your weakness in this moment. And I remember thinking, oh God, that's gonna be hard because this incident really is close to my heart. It
mm,
hurts. And so I started into the message, and I could see immediately that the staff who I was speaking to were not with me. They didn't,
mm,
you know, and rightfully so. I wasn't being vulnerable in delivering that message, and they were not open to being vulnerable with me or each other because of that. And it was mid message that I consciously switched and leaned into my
Wow.
emotions, my connection to the situation, and got off of the you got to be strong moment, and instead you've got to be real. And that was honestly career changing for me. Like those moments were really important. So that was intense and very real, but I'm proud of the way that turned out. The other one, not quite as emotional as that first one, but we had a consultant group come in, and they're doing some marketing not so long ago for our school, and they spent a few days and then hit us with a catchy catchphrase, if you will. It was it was punchy, pitchy, it was all the right things. But they'd been here for a short while, and I kept on thinking, gosh, it's not resonating with me, but they're the experts. It's not resonating with me, but they're the experts. They see something that I can't see. Having been here for as long as I have been, I should have trusted my gut on this one, Garth. And I went out a couple weeks later with the message that they'd provided me with as the expert consultants in this area.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, it's got to be one of my top regrets in headship, is blindly following that advice and not trusting my gut. And I think, sure, I think there's a place for consultants, and I think there's a place for experts in this, but I also think there's got to be a place where, as a leader, you are deeply empathetic with your community and you trust your gut, and you don't, so you listen to yourself. I think if you got a handle on your community, you just got to listen to yourself. And I wish I had listened to myself there a little bit in that instance.
Thanks for sharing, Jason.
Yeah, of course.
That's I heard something which we've been learning about this entire season 2 of our podcast, which is sometimes you move into leadership and you have an expectation of how you think you need to behave. In this one instance, that you shared, you had to be strong, right?
Mm-hmm.
But really, you have to be authentic. There is no playbook for how Jason Rundle should lead. That playbook is being written as you go. You're getting feedback, input on how, from other leaders and mentors, I'm sure. But in the end, I love that. It didn't feel right. So you pivoted in the moment. Just thanks for sharing. That was great. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. No, I think that's, it's totally true. I mean, but there's so much out there, Garth. Like, I think everybody's experience and understanding communication is different, good, strong communication. And I think it's just great to have a toolkit, whether it's this podcast or books or articles or any of those things. Garth, do you have any quick hits for communication for our listeners? So something they can lean on?
Sure do. I love that we started this by you saying, like, attention is at a premium here. I'd like to share, the first one I'd like to share is called Weekend Language. We'll put it in the show notes. This is a weekend read. It is not a long book. It's really accessible. The message is palpable. It's important because it's a little bit like death by PowerPoint. They're trying to get us around that. I gift this to early entry leaders often because I find it so effective. And if you're not a reader, then you can just check out this now very dated old YouTube called Life After Death by PowerPoint. It's by Don McMillan. It made its rounds when it first came out. It is hilarious, but tragically, we still see many of the elements that he is satirizing in that YouTube.
Oh, yeah, that's so good. And I think it reminds me of a couple things as well, Garth. I mean, there's a book called Presentation Zen, which is, probably 20 years old now, but it's a great design book on how to capture people's imagination and attention in presentations. And not long ago, I was at a conference where a guy named Gary Vaynerchuk was speaking. Gary V. He's a communication legend, and he was talking about his book Day Trading Attention. And anything by him is magic when it comes to capturing people's attention. So I definitely recommend those. But I know you've probably got more, Garth. You're one of the people on the planet who read more than I do. So you go for it.
One more for you. The resource is from the Humphrey Group. It's called Leadership Communication Trends. It's a findings report. It's a great report. It's visual. It's insightful. It shows leaders some quick wins and some practices that can change the way you approach communication with your own teams, your own organization, and then different shareholders, different people in and outside of that. And I love this resource.
Cool. And why that report, Garth? Like, is there anything more to it? Why do you choose that one?
Well, Jason, I'm so glad you asked. It's like we have this whole thing scripted. Our guest for the next pod is the CEO of the Humphrey Group. So the organization that comes up with this stuff. I'm really excited that Bart Egnell is going to join us. He's the CEO of an organization whose sole purpose is to level up effective communication of leaders. And Bart and I are good friends. We met a while ago when I was teaching with his wife, Emily. We've kept in touch. And what seems like ages ago, I was on his podcast. So this would be a fun little reunion for us.
Oh, Garth, I'm so excited. Thanks for bringing him to our podcast. It's going to be so much fun. And ultimately, this is the best part of this podcast is, one, us getting to interact with these incredible thinkers, but also to share them with our community. And when we think about sharing them with our community, there's nothing better than getting back from our community. So if you have any questions or ideas that you want to share with us, whether it's about this podcast or BART or otherwise, bring them to us and let us know. So you can let us know in any number of ways. You can send them to lassoingleadership@gmail.com. You can slip into our DMs and LinkedIn or Instagram, or just hit us up in the hallway or over phone call or text. We're always here. So thanks. We really appreciate you listening. Continue to subscribe, tell your friends. I'm still on a mission to get Sudeikis on here, and Ryan Reynolds wouldn't be bad either. We're still arm's reach away. But Garth, I think if we just believe it, we can make it happen.
#believe. All right, folks, that's a wrap. Until next time, keep leading the Lasso way.
Thanks, Garth. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Jason. Thanks, everyone.
Step up to the mic. It's time to play. Lassoing leadership every day. From the pitch to the boardroom, lessons call to mind. Keep leading the lasso way. You'll find we've got heart, we've got soul, and humor too. Exploring how TED shows what leaders should do. With Garth and Jason, we dive right in, breaking down Ted's world. Let's begin from AFC Richmond's field to your day-to-day. Lassoing leadership's here to stay. Keep leading the lasso way. Together we'll grow stronger every day. So plug in your headphones and let's start the show. With lessons from TED, we'll learn and grow.